This is Faith on Trial on Star FM, exploring matters of faith and issues within the church.
Tonight on Faith on Trial, we ask, what does the Bible really mean when it says, do not be unequally yoked together with non-believers? How important is it to consider someone's level of faith when looking for a life partner? Should the idea of spiritual compatibility guide you during dating and courtship? Faith on Trial with E.T. tonight at 8.
This is Faith on Trial on Star FM, exploring matters of faith and issues within the church.
Let's get into the show. Welcome into the latest edition of Faith on Trial live on Star FM. And today is one of those days that are very, very exciting indeed as we dive into a matter that affects almost everyone. Aren't you excited about that? And as usual on the show, we like to start with our listener's choice song for this week. The way that you can also request a song is by joining the Faith on Trial official WhatsApp group. The link is in the description or the about on our Star FM WhatsApp right now. So just click the link and join. And to kick us off live on Faith on Trial is Basil Brown, who says that he got converted from being a Christian to be Muslim after he married his wife, and he requested Reurura by Se Colors and Mambo Duterere. That's the sound of Se Colors and Mambo Duterere, Hanzi Reurura. So this is a song that was requested on our official Faith on Trial WhatsApp group. So you want to be part of the Faith on Trial WhatsApp group, why don't you join the WhatsApp community today? All you need to do is click the link that is on the description on our official WhatsApp number 0772162651, and you can join. So go on the about, go on the description area, press down, copy, paste it somewhere, and you can join right now. So you can also be part of the community. So Basil Brown, interestingly, has a bit of a story that connects to our topic today. He says that he was converted from being Christian to becoming Muslim after he married his wife. His family had to accept it eventually. So at least now I know two guys who had to convert. You got Basil and you got K Chaps who says Ndiwe Wandai Endera Kuwisiri. Let's hear what Basil had to say about his story.
Morning. Panye nasi inini ndronzi Basil. Ndakatorora Muslim but ndiri Christian. Akungowirana zvedu but ini ndinakazojoina chimuslim hazviri bhazvo ndo vabereki vangu vakazvitambirawo vake vakazvitambirawo zvakanaka.
This is Faith on Trial on Star FM, exploring matters of faith and issues within the church.
Welcome into the latest edition of Faith on Trial, and this week we ask, what does the Bible really mean when it says, be ye not unequally yoked together with non-believers? How important is a partner's level of faith? Is it something that you consider when making up your mind on a future spouse? Should the idea of spiritual compatibility guide you during a dating and courtship? That is what we're going to be diving into today. And to help us to talk about this, we have invited our guests in the studio, Pastor Presley Nyenya of Qingdao International Christian Church Fellowship in China, all the way from China, and now fellowshipping at Emerald Hill Community Church. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. Thank you so much, Pastor E.T.
Good. Let's talk a little bit to our other guest, Peggy Umind Shangwa. Now, she's a creative entrepreneur, communications practitioner, spoken word artist, podcaster, missionary with youth with a mission, and transformational leader as well, development consultant. The list is endless. I'm sure I left out quite a few things there, but it's good to have you, Umind.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Should we go with you mind?
Oh, go with what you want. It's fine. I don't mind.
Okay.
You're good.
All right. So we'll go with you mind, and we'll want you to share a little bit on where you mind came from a little later on the show. But as usual, we like to start with our question of the day, something that can just jog your mind a bit, something that can have you thinking about the world of religion, the body of Christ, and things of that nature. Which religion is known as the 330 million gods religion, i.e., it has 330 million gods? Which religion is that? So you can come through on our WhatsApp platform and you can answer that. And talking about the WhatsApp platform, as usual, we've got the Happy Gang in the studio. Steve Vickers is still away, but we have got Tobekile and Sakile in the studio.
Hello, hola.
How you doing?
Hola.
Lovely. So as usual, man, we just have to give you the platform to tell us about what's been trending in the body of Christ. Got something for me there?
Yes, I do, E.T. So, listen to this. Every public school classroom in Louisiana has been ordered to display a poster of the 10 Commandments, a move that civil liberties groups say they will challenge. The Republican-backed measure is the first of its kind in the U.S. and governs all classrooms up to university level. Governor Jeff Landry signed it off on Wednesday last week. So Christians see the 10 Commandments as key rules from God on how to live, and the new law describes them as foundational to state and national governance, but opponents say the law breaks America's separation of church and state. So I think a question that I would pose on the WhatsApp platform, do you think our classes should have the 10 Commandments? Do you think schools should have posters of the 10 Commandments?
Yeah, and it's interesting that it's going all the way to university level.
Right.
Where
right.
you've got that, you walk into the class and the 10 Commandments are there.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I never thought the day will come, especially in this sort of period, that Louisiana, of all places,
right.
will have the 10 Commandments displayed when you walk into.
Does it feel like the world is going the other side?
I'm confused. If this was in Africa somewhere,
yeah,
I'd say
you'd understand.
I'll understand that.
Yeah,
but it's not 10 Commandments. Maybe the panel have got something to say. Would you endorse this? Let me go to you, mind. Would you endorse plastering the 10 Commandments in the classroom?
Well, as a former teacher,
yeah.
I would say the moral compass of the world is pointing somewhere else. This would be really interesting to have as a board for children to be able to be taught on what is right, what is wrong, what is expected of society, just as a foundation. I probably would endorse it as a former teacher.
Wow, so we've got the former teacher. I told you that I've left some stuff. There we go. 10 Commandments, Pastor Presley, is there anything that you'd say would stand out maybe from a student point of view? Maybe you'd want to put the do not lie in bold.
Yeah, in as much as the 10 Commandments are not bad, even to teach young students, but to say, I think Jesus did something for us. He summarized it all for us. And he put a new command I give unto you, love one another as I have loved you. So I think all men, or even those that want to endorse it, they have to preach love. And they have to be loved, so that those that see them, those students that, they are students, will know that really there is more to life.
Wow. So I think we've got 100% endorsement. I know Tobekile wouldn't want them there. So 75%.
I do want them
really?
there.
I'm surprised.
I support, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of faith.
That is why I thought you would want them there, because you'd say,
that's the question now, because that's where everyone would want to be included. So everyone will be asking, Guti, so if there are 10 Commandments, can I come with something from the Quran, from Hinduism and stuff? So the walls will be full.
Oh, those would be fools. Yeah, today we've got a religion that is 330 gods. So I don't know.
Imagine that.
Yeah, that's quite something else. That's our trending story. Continue to send your reaction on our WhatsApp platform 0772 162 651.
Faith on Trial on Star FM. WhatsApp us on 0772 162 651. Call in on 0772 162 651 or 0714 414 413.
So it is that time of the show when we get into the roundtable discussion, when we invite you, yes, you who are listening, to be part of the conversation. What you need to do is just go onto our WhatsApp platform, get ready to dial and phone in, get ready to just send something through. Even if you're part of the official WhatsApp group as well, we're taking messages from there. As today we are going to be talking about this topic of being unequally yoked. That's going to be our main thrust today. Our theme verse taken obviously from 2 Corinthians 6:14. If you're wondering where that comes from, that's where we're going to be taking that. And in the studio, we welcome Pastor Presley, and we also have Mind, who is in the studio. And before we dive deep, I promised the people that we would want to know where Mind came from. Give us a bit of background on who Mind is.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Mind is my stage name as a spoken word artist. And the very first time I got on stage, way back in 2012, I got to the House of Hunger Poetry Slam, and we were supposed to be slamming, and they asked us if we had stage names, and I didn't have one. And I thought about it, and I thought, okay, so if I'm going to have a stage name, I want something that would be useful. And at the time, what came to mind was the importance of always remembering why I started. So Mind is a rhetoric question as well as a statement of fact. And what it means is, wherever you put me on a stage, I will gravitate towards talking about what I believe in, which is my faith. And do you mind? If you mind, that's a really mean expression. You can't separate the two. So there you have it. You mind?
Oh, wow. So that's where the "you mind" comes from. I noticed there's like an exclamation mark and a question mark as well there.
Yes, the question for the rhetoric, and then the exclamation mark to say, hey, we're not changing this.
Okay, so that's Peggy Shangwa, "you mind." We're going to be going with "you mind" today. And we also have Pastor Presley Nyenya Qingdao International Christian Fellowship in China, now fellowshipping at Emerald Hill Community Church. It's been quite a journey for you in China and now here in Zim. How much do you appreciate your experience in China?
Yeah, to a great extent, it is amazing to see that, the gospel is still thriving in a nation where it might not be hindered. It's not like free for everyone, but still the gospel is thriving.
Fresh out of China, would you believe? So we're touching all the corners of the globe today. Let's set a bit of a foundation for our topic today as we are continuing to talk about this one. So we've spoken about this a little bit in the past, but we didn't touch it in terms of the spiritual compatibility component. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today as we ask, what does the Bible really mean when it says, do not be unequally yoked together with non-believers? We ask about the importance for you listening to me right now. Is it important to find out the level of faith of someone that you're considering a long-term relationship with? Is spiritual compatibility something that has to guide you in decision-making, things like dating and courtship? So we're going to be taking a look at that. But maybe let's start with the statement itself and where it comes from, and how we have gotten to this point where we use it for the most part to talk about relationships. Maybe I'll start with you, Pastor Presley, for just a quick little background on this verse and what it entails.
Okay, so this verse that talks about not being unequally yoked, 1 Corinthians 6 verse 14, it is entailing that as a believer, you need to be having your principles that guide you, like your core values. And if someone is not in line with those core values, you need not to marry them for any reason in hope that maybe you be able to convert them. So basically, it's about belief, not about anything else like racism or no. It's about belief.
It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
A yoke, you want to maybe expand on the analogy used there?
So when they talk about yoking in this instance, they usually talk about how people would use oxen to plow. So they would find two oxen that are of the same stature, that are the same in every way. They pull together. They have the same length. They have the same breadth. Everything is the same, so that when you put the yoke on them to plow with, it all goes into the ground the same. You're able to actually plow well. So when they use this analogy, they're saying that you can't have people together that are not the same, that don't have the same beliefs, that don't have the same way of thinking, that do not have the same values, like Pastor Presley said. So usually when you look at those oxen, it kind of paints the picture, because you can't have two oxen with one that has one leg that is shorter than the other three, because that will not make your plowing work out the way that you want it to happen.
Yeah, you can't have a donkey and an ox.
You can't.
You can't have a horse and an ox.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, with the yoke being like a steering wheel. I guess if Jesus was here today, he'll probably use a steering wheel instead of a yoke, because that was like an agricultural context.
Yeah,
Guys,
it was.
Would be involved in all this and that sort of thing. So they would understand this a little bit more. So that's the background, and we stick it to that. Do you want to add anything to that, Pastor Presley?
Yeah, I think, as we go further in talking about unequally yoked, it would then be important to find, what does it really mean to me or to you?
As an individual.
As an individual. Does it mean that if I am a believer, my level of, my spiritual level should be the same with the one that I'm supposed to be dating or marrying? What does it really mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation on the streets. We've got a segment that's called Faith on Trial on the Streets. And sometimes you can just bump into one of us and we're holding a microphone and we're asking you some questions. And that's what we were doing. We caught up with you on the streets of Harare and spoke to you on these matters. We first asked whether or not a spiritual background check is important in a relationship.
Is Faith on Trial on Star FM, exploring matters of faith and issues within the church.
Anotimba mwari rinoita zvisetenzi zvezvi azvizvi hazvina basa zvezvi hazvina kana basa zvine basa osha ndakambokubvunzera kuti ndine zvezvi
Kwe makambomvunze
ndambomvunzera just ngodanana ndakamudza ndikati kusapota chienda kuchechi nditi kozi Bible toriwerenga paDN verse pastor wedu hechi hazvina basa.
Yeah, zvakakosha because unonyatsotoona nyangwe neunhu wake pakutambise already kutambise nenga akawimbikawo kunewe popo unoona kuti munhu anotya Mwari.
Bebe wako ateerere wakwana bebe asingakuteereri zvichimenza kuti amapana kwamukuenda saka kana iwe unofanira kunge uchinamata kana iwe uchinamata ka bebe anofanira kukuteerera kuchechi kwaunenge uchienda.
Kana ari serious tinofanira kunzwanana pakutaura tikati handei kuchechi toenda tese.
Saka zvinhu zviri enough here kuti it's over.
Yeah. Nestori enough because ndipo unotanga kuona ma-true colors emunhu.
Yeah, zvangokosha kuti vanhu vadanane because like auzozivi zvinoitika kumberi.
Okay, it's good to know the background yemunhu namatiro zvaanobelieva nekuti munhu anonangokudza kuti ini ndobelieva chakati then iwewe inobelieva chakati, so zvinosiyana. Kuti uchida munhu wako kana achibelieva zveitira you have to think according to the truth, but iwewe unenge uchizviitira kuti munhu wako arambe achikuda like uruda kuzviisa mutsoka dzake kuti murambe muchifambirana ndiri. At the same time you know kuti it's bad.
Panotinetsei like unenge wakarerwa kumba kwenyu kwamunoita zvechiwanu
ndozvaunenge uchibhilivha. Uzosangana nemunhu anoita zvechristianity iye haazvibhilivhi. Zvinonetsa kuti umuteni kuti anzwisise kuti azvikwanisa asina mbuvhira akasangana nazvo. It's very inini as for me handikwanise kuti ndodheta munhu anoita zvechiwani ndisingazvinzwisise zvechiwani. Handikwanise akwanisa kundibvisa kuti ndizotanga kumutaurira kuti 1 2 3 kwedu kunoitwa zvechiwano, gogo vanozodai kana kuti sekuru vaidai kana kuti tete oro hanzvadzi yangu. Zvinonetsa because iye like anenge akangozoti isusu tinoti like muroma akangojera kuti akamuka makuseni kuma8 atoenda kuchechi, ozokwanisa kuti isusu kwedu kumanamatiro edu tinomirira kuti munhu atanga asvikirwa. Ndozvinoita vamwe kuti atanga asvikirwa kuti wazive kuti panonetsa.
Kana mwari kuroma mwari kuSDA
like ma7th day kuti utene munhu kubva ku7th day kuenda panonetsa because like ma7th day zvaanobhilivha anoita zveBible but mitemo yawo yakatosiyana kure kure neroma.
Saka relationship inenge
panonetsa hazvitoiti.
Streets, and those are the voices that we were talking to. We had couples that were together that we're talking to and things like that. And the 7th day, just catching a stray there from nowhere, man. You know, Tambika guys, don't worry, we got you. Very, very soon. But there's so many things that were coming out when I was talking to these people on the streets. But maybe let's start with, why is it important to have spiritual compatibility before we go into some of the voices that were there? You know, for example, interfaith dating, where you've got a Muslim and a Christian. We heard from Basil, who was saying, look, I was dating a Muslim girl, but when it came to marriage and things like that, after some time I then converted to Muslim. Let's talk about that. The importance of spiritual compatibility in terms of interfaith dating.
Yeah, so in terms of interfaith dating, I would say, it is very important for one to make his or her mind before they get involved in that. My opinion would say it is not a good idea to be involved in that.
Would you say we've lost a brother? You mind? With Basil, who sent us that audio saying, don't worry, Muslim, but he's in the group and he always contributes Christian stuff and things like that. He's kind of torn in between. He's still, but I guess he goes, you see where he is now. So what would you say about that?
I think your belief system really is something that is integral to who you are. It affects your behavior, it affects your character, and it also speaks to your value system. So for him to actually say that he has converted to a Muslim faith means that he is changing some basic things that he believes in. And one of the things that the Muslim believe is that Jesus was just another prophet. So that already means that he's playing a very dangerous game, especially with his own belief, because he then, especially for a person who's been a Christian before, we believe that Christ is the Savior, Christ is the Messiah. But for the Muslim faith, they do not believe that he's the Messiah. They are still looking for the Messiah in some ways, and he is not the one. So that then will affect how he will do things in future. But I would also ask, what for him, like for Basil, he followed this lady and they're now married, right?
Yeah, they're now married, yeah.
It then becomes a big thing now, because a decision for marriage is for life.
Yeah.
And this is for his whole life.
He says that, my family eventually accepted. So there was friction. Yeah. Pastor Presley, I'll come to you. There are some people who have contributed saying, I'll go to wherever I'm going to satisfy my faith, and Madam Ogeza Obudo Vakadai, but eventually you're bringing children into the picture. Yes. There are families that you're trying to unite. What could be some of the complications of interfaith when you look at it like that?
Yeah, definitely from the word go, it brings complications because you don't have values. You don't even agree on what is pure or what is not pure, what is holy and what is not holy. So we have an issue of premarital sex involved. How do you know? Is it right or wrong? Because someone saying, no, my background says it's fine. And then you are saying, no. So, and then your children that are now coming to the picture, as you said, Pastor E.T., are they going to be going to church or not? Or are they going to be Muslims? Or how are you going to make your decisions for your life, basically?
Hey, yeah. Teta satara dedere, you might. Teta super anotenda kumatari.
You know,
and you unakwenda ku Roma.
Wow, that's a big one. That's a big dilemma that's always going to exist in this marriage. But I think I would like to bring it back to what is the purpose of the marriage? Who started marriage? And the way we solve this is looking at what God says. He's the one that started marriage in the beginning. The purpose of marriage wasn't just for, anyone to get together for whatever you want. Someone says, I was listening to that audio.
Yeah.
But the purpose of marriage wasn't just for us to mjolo, to just enjoy life and love each other. There was a purpose behind it. God said, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth. And He wanted people to get married so that they're able to showcase the love of the Father. Family is the only place where we actually showcase the love of the Father, the love that Christ has for us. Family is that one institute that really shows that. So when we decide to do it anyhow, there's a big question mark there.
Yeah, get involved in this conversation. If you're dating, let us know. Do you care about these issues? Or let's just be in love. Tell us what you think about all of these things. Get in touch on our WhatsApp. You're also free to phone in 0772162651, 0714414413. It's also another option for you to phone in and send some WhatsApps. Is it something that you actually think about? Or you start to complain when you find yourself unequally yoked a year into a committed relationship and things like that. So get in touch with us. This is Faith on Trial.
On Trial on Star FM. WhatsApp us on 0772162651. Call in on 0772162651 or 0714414413.
Okay, so we have got things that are buzzing here. Tobekile is itching to have a word on this roundtable discussion. Maybe go ahead, Tobekile, you've got something to say on this one?
Well, it's quite interesting because family dynamics differ with people. You find there are some times where, like, Baba and go to church, but the mom is the one who carries the family for some time until maybe the dad is ready to join in the faith. Or there are some people where you find Kutoti, for the longest of times, the mom or the dad, one of them, airamba kupinda chitendo. Chitendo. Oh, I'm trying, Shona. Okay, let me give up on that one. But they're trying to follow in the other person's faith, and for some reasons, there's delay. Delay is not denial. So sometimes there could be that resistance, or the time is just not right. So the other person will be carrying the other person until they are ready to actually then take the steps into belief. I don't know. There are those family dynamics.
Let me throw it in because I think I get what you're saying. But how do we handle this one? Let me put it to you guys. From what Tobekile is saying, we know God can do anything, right? Do you go by what God can do, or do you go by what God tells you to do? What do you go by, you man?
We go by what God tells us to do so that we don't risk working on corrections. So how in school the teacher would say 1 + 1 = 2. And then you get that and you work on it. But when you don't get it, sometimes the teacher decides, I'm coming with a stick, so you get it. So it usually comes with something else. You don't want a stick, because in Genesis 2 verse 18, God says, it is not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper fit for him. So that word fit there then means that there's someone made for you specifically that God wants, who will fit your future, who will fit the things that will change in your life. And there's room for those corrections that we're talking about, where God's mercy comes in and someone then gets saved, Tobekile, like what you're saying. And that's where Paul then says, hey, if the wife of an unbeliever comes to church and she's praying, and the husband, the conduct of the wife must be such that the husband can commend her so that he too can be won to Christ. There's room for that, but the Bible does not teach us to start there. It teaches us, hey, do it the right way. Be led by God. Choose your spouse based on what we've been taught, not what you think you want. Because the template we see in the Bible, you see in Genesis 24, Abraham says to his son, to his servant, my son Isaac now needs a wife. Please do not pick a wife from anywhere, because the Lord had given a law and said, do not just marry across all these people, these pagan people that are doing weird things and worshipping rocks and stones and cows. Go pick your wife from the people that I will lead you, the people, where I will lead you. And he says, go and pick from amongst my people. So he sends the servant, and that's how Rebecca is found. That's a template we see in the Bible. So it's important for us, even when you go back to Genesis, which I quoted, it says that when God made the man, he didn't just say you can go with the cow, he made a helper fit for him. That's why he made the woman.
I imagine you wouldn't recommend Tinder. Swipe left.
Yo, that's a conversation for another day.
They're interesting dynamics.
Wow. So let's talk about the pressure that the girl child and the boy child is under.
Yeah.
We had the opportunity to speak to Ruimbo Chakoreka, who deals with these issues at a New Life Covenant Church, and he gave us an insight into the Pentecostal setup that he's involved in, and some dynamics that can influence these decisions.
So there's a disconnect between the two. A dude within a charismatic setting is under the pressure of either the establishment of the church that they are in, or under the mfundisi that they serve under, in order to get married, right? The moment they get into a relationship, they're now connecting with a charismatic Pentecostal girl who has got the pressure to get married, because this is what she hears 3/4 of her Sundays. Your marriage is coming, your marriage is here, the dude is here, the what is here. So the moment that Ango Wirirana ne the dude, she has already come to the marriage door. Atoshika a marriage door. And the expectation that it's a matter of time before this dude marries me. But the dude is in a place whereby I'm still in the dating tunnel. I haven't reached the marriage gate. So that is where the disconnect happens. And then there's the desperation that tends to come, not entirely, but tends to come from the girl to then expedite the expedition. And that's when we then have these issues around fornication, people sleeping together and things like that, because we're now trying to get this thing over the line. Can't this dude see kuti tatoshika, or ndokwanda kuda kusvika? Maybe if I give him extra, he will then be able to bite the bait and then cross over. But then dudes, others who are still within that Pentecostal setting, will then say, if it's coming for free and I don't work for it, I'll take it. The first challenge then comes when that chick falls pregnant. And then you realize, I'm a one.
So that's a reflection on some of the dynamics within the church itself. If you are just tuning in, this is Faith on Trial live on Star FM, and today we are talking about being unequally yoked. And if you're just tuning in, feel free to send through your comments. We're asking questions like, what does the Bible really mean when it says do not be unequally yoked together with non-believers? How important is a partner's level of faith? Is it something to consider when making up your mind on a future spouse? Should the idea of spiritual compatibility actually guide you during dating and courtship? So these are the type of questions that we are asking. And in the studio, we've got Pastor Presley Nyenya, and we also have a U-Mind, Peggy Ashangwa, who's in the studio with us. Pastor Presley Nyenya from the International Christian Fellowship in China, and now in Zimbabwe, part of the
Emerald Hill.
Emerald Hill. I'm thinking Blufffield, and I know Blufffield is not the one. Emerald Hill. Yeah, Emerald Hill Community Church. And we also have You Mind, spoken word artist, also involved with a missionary with the youth, with a mission as well. So a lot of things coming out from that audio, which tends to point to pressure. Inemwana scan uti arorwe, and bypassing some of these values and value systems and moral systems that maybe she has and she's held on to for a long time, but because she's already at the marriage door and the guy is not there, things tend to happen. I'll come to you mind, as the mwanasikana in the room. Is there pressure on a girl child, or is this just something that is being spoken about?
No, there is real pressure because especially I will speak about my own background in the Pentecostal church. There is a way, but also just I think even nationally, as a Zimbabwean, as an African, as an African woman, you are taught from when you are young that you will get married. So you play with dolls, you have a baby from when you are 5 years old. So that's an expectation that's built into you. So much that when you get to your teenagehood, you're already being taught on how you will be able to look after a family, how you'll be able to look after a husband. And by the time you get to your 20s, everyone is asking you, when you go to family gatherings, you go to a funeral, you go to a wedding, when are you next? When is your wedding? Bamkuru varikupi? I have those questions asked, thrown at me at every gathering I go to. Where is Bamkuru? When are you getting married? So it's almost as if they expect you to switch on a bulb or switch it on somewhere, and it just happens. Yeah. So for some young women, if you don't really have good counsel, and you don't really stick to what you have been taught over the years, it's easy to decide, you know what, he's not coming, let me take matters into my own hands, and I'm just going to make sure that, the next guy that asks me out is going to marry me. And that's a recipe for disaster, because the guy is in a different space, like Ruimbo is saying. He's speaking about a guy that's just thinking, hey, I'm having fun. He hasn't planned out where he wants to be. He has not looked at, okay, where am I going with my life? He hasn't even decided where he is with God in his own life. Maybe he's just in church enjoying, the process of church.
Sometimes there are people who've just been in church.
Yeah.
Mama na did chamarande church, and it's been like that for the past decade or so, and they just kind of there. Yeah, but spiritually, they might not hold the value system that you hold.
So that's really then pushes the young girl, but it's also a decision the young girl makes. I need to then say that, because each young girl, with the pressure that comes, you still have to make a decision whether you will fold or not.
But you know how the in church, a lot of prophecies that are thrown around. A lot of decreeing and declaring as doing the rounds, Pastor Presley.
Yeah.
And it's been decreed, it's been declared, it's been prophesied that the marriage is on its way, all the time. Yeah. I guarantee you, when there's some young ladies and they're gathering and there's some decreeing and declaring and some prophesying happening, the issue of marriage is always brought up. And she's feeding on this. And then she sees the guy who happens to be in church and all that, and there you go. So maybe, Pastor Presley, you can also just comment as well from some of the pressures from the boy child point of view, where they are asked, there's something that's asked of them as well within this setup.
Yeah, it is a hard setup to say, because as you are saying, as the year starts, those are the prophecies.
Yeah. And
that becomes an expectation because of what you are hearing and all around. And if the guy is working maybe with Papa Okchechi, and Papa wants to, allow the guy to start something, that means the guy needs to be married.
Yes.
But
so pane pressure all the time.
Pressure at all, yeah.
And muganda kumasofa akumasofa zvapera. You have to arrange marriage kana masvika kumasofa. Mungangowe kuzogara kumasofa. You have to tie the knot mukainawo. So that's some of the pressures from the boy child, isn't it?
But the boy doesn't even understand chiko chinombonzi marriage chacho.
Oh.
You see. But nekuda kwe pressure and nekuda kwe kuda kufadza, the elders or the people that are there, you end up accepting the pressure even without knowing what you are doing.
Yeah, and that can lead, as you say, your mind, to disastrous situations. So let's allow for a phone call. Do I have something on the line there? 0772162651. Let's see if we can get someone to just chime in on this one. This idea of being unequally yoked. So just for you who's phoning. So the yoke that we're talking about today is the one that Paul references. We know that Jesus introduces us to this analogy in Matthew 11 when he talks about how his yoke is easy and his burden is light. And then Paul doubles down on this by saying, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. So that's the yoke that we're talking about today. So if you're going to be phoning in and if you're going to be sending messages, then be mindful of where we are with this conversation. 2 Corinthians 6:14. We have someone on the line. Good evening. You're through to Star FM Faith on Trial.
Evening, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
This is a very interesting topic. And the most striking issue here is, have you ever realized that my religions are not fanana? I don't know if you can get where I'm going with this conversation. Magambona kuti, for example, kuma Indian, vaita zvekuti vanoita arranged marriages anditi. Then pachivanhu, taizirorana nematongo. And then now, kutaura nyaya yekuva equally yoked. So, like, she was asking, what's the purpose of marriage? And I think it's the same across most religions. But panozongeta like the channels that are used for communication do anosiyana. So hence maybe my values are conflicted in that way. But I've realized sometimes actually culture is dynamic and it changes over time. So you'd notice izvezvi muitikiro waita zvinhu kudhara now kuti timaintaine kuti matongo kana kuti nyaya yekuti for example kuchurch you were speaking about pressure inozoita vakadzi kana mainly the girl child. Unogona kutoona kuti muchechi macho mauri kupinda masango matema hazvisi kubatana handiti. So now you have this pressure yekuti ndoita sei handitika. And then you find someone who's not going to church but they are good, So I feel like it's possible because Chekutanga is being a human being first before Taisa religion and be able to respect humanity. It's a requirement. Ukwana munhu akadaro anokwanisa kuva munhu first and then they can respect you and love you. I feel like they can compromise in other areas. So for example, pane challenge vanhu vanoenda kumachurch akasiyana. Of which mainly kana mupesa akarora takutozwa kuti kana kutoenda hake kunopinda kuchechi uko. But if one is not going anywhere or ana religion anoascribe to, then it's easy to just pull them into whatever you are doing because of that respect that they have for you. Sezvazoita uyu azojoina ma-Muslims because he wants to keep this thing going with the partner he chose, so it doesn't make it difficult. So I feel like it's possible to have someone whokuti mavalues enyu kwamuri kubva ma-backgrounds anenge akati siyanei, but as long as you're able to respect the other person, you are able to also compromise and get along.
Thank you. Who are we talking to?
This is Dorothy.
All right. Thank you, Dorothy.
All right. Good night.
Good night. So we've got Dorothy there who says, as long as it's a human being, are you not setting the bar a little low with just settling for a human being? Is the bar not on the floor? Can I walk settle for just a human being? What do you think about that?
Yeah, as I said earlier, it's not a racial issue. It's a belief issue. And God has been in the business of pursuing nations from the word go. But when it came to marriage, he was saying, do not intermarry. Do not was a command. And it was for the reason that they will not lose their values or their beliefs or what is core or what is most important to them. Now, when they intermarried, they lost their value for God. And as we can see that, it is important that at least the person, it's a human being, right? That's fair enough. But you now need to make sure that that person is able to be in same line with you, because every decision that you make will affect your life. And if that person says no, what will you do next? So you need to keep it in mind, because you are doing it for a lifetime. But if you need to evangelize to someone, please evangelize. There's no reason for you to date someone when you still can evangelize. If you want them to be recruited or to become a child of God, evangelize to them, preach the word of God to them.
Don't date them.
Don't date them. But if you think that for them to become believers, you need to date them or to marry them, then I think you are wrong. Because these people, they need God, not you. It is God that can change a man. So present God to them and allow God to work in their lives.
Words like compromise your mind. What do you think about that? She was alluding to compromise. She was alluding to, all sorts of needs. There's a lot of human effort that is being put into this.
Yeah, it's like, let's make it work at all costs. I don't want a relationship like that, especially if it's for life. I would think that the standard is on the floor, E.T.
The bar is low.
It's on the floor. It's very low, because if anything in pants works for me, then that means any guy I see, as long as he qualifies and he breathes, he's human, I can be able to date him. And I don't think that's a good standard to have, because I want to be able to do the things that are purposeful with this guy, because we're on the same level in our beliefs. Is Christ formed in this person? Is he born in him? Can we think on the same level? Are we able to actually agree on things? Not because I just want to smooth things over and say, hey, you know what, let's do this. An example in the Bible, we have two examples of men that decided to marry, and as we're talking to, do not be unequally yoked, and talking to Christians today, I would say, look at the examples of people that did this, that just went with, anything works. In Judges chapter 14, verse 2-3, we hear of Samson, and he just goes to his parents. He just
you
sees
were going
this
to bring
woman.
up Sammy.
Yes, he just sees
the
this
mighty Sammy.
Amazing Philistine woman, and he says, go get her for me. And the parents are actually distressed, and they say, haven't you seen other women? Are there no women in Israel? Why? And he says, get her for me. I want her. And this trait of his to just pick anyone is what then got his eyes taken out, because he then picked another one he wasn't supposed to have played with. He picked a Delilah. And a Delilah was in it for the money. Like, if whatever I can do to make the money. So the Philistines came and said, hey, we want to fix this guy. And she's like, hey, as long as I can profit from it, I'm fine. So if you just choose because they're a person, you better make sure your eyes are going to stay.
Wow. Let's pick another phone call, 0772162651. You can be part of this conversation. Let me see if I've got someone on the line here. So, whilst we wait for someone to come through, 0772162651, 0714414413, those are the numbers to dial. Good evening, you're through to Star FM.
Hello.
Hello, you're through Ndukutaro Nani. You can go ahead.
I think Mulakunya to Kwafe une contribution at Panador.
Okay, so what did you hear from Dorothy? Maybe you can give us another angle.
Dorothy ana kuti you are just picking munu nekuti wa shangu. Atizo pane issue yekuti iye ane benefit yake, uyu munhu warusangana naye ane benefit yakewo, but yakuona kuti benefit yake ndo yakuti money. Munhu ane hunhu. It's not like kuti ndi Samson arusangana na Delilah. wokuti Delilah ari kutsvaga mari and ari kutsvaga something that aroda kuti ngoti this I want to go with this chisiri chinhu chinoyemurika saka ane belief system yakanaka yekuti izvozva uyo haasi wekuchitendero changu asi ndinokwanisa kupika this person nekuda kwokuti ane some belief system yake yekuenda kuchechi asi belief system yaati humanity. Saka pari kuti pari kubatana siu ndingati zvinotenderwa nevanhu zviviri. Saka hakusi kuti uri kungopika someone waona parodi. Ndo mabatiro andaita contribution yaDhorotha handizivi mafolowero amaita nekuti mazuva anga arongoti mazuva anga angoti mangosangana nemunhu very most bha rekuti ndosangana neupi really very long. Thank you.
Okay. That's fine. Let's take another one. 0772162651 0714414413. You can come through and have your say on this one.
Faith on Trial on Star FM. WhatsApp us on 07. Faith on Trial on Star FM. WhatsApp us on 0772162651. Call in on 0772162651 or 0714414413.
Hello? Hello? Hello, Faith on Trial?
Yes, you're through to Faith on Trial. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to say, there's this talk about religion, and I just wanted to say, when we read from the Bible, it's about obedience, the command. It's, religion. Christianity is not a religion because we are taking this verse from the Bible, which is the standard for Christianity. And I don't take Christianity as a religion because religion is when men are seeking to get to God, but Christianity is God seeking to redeem men, God lowering his hand to men. And therefore, when we get into that relationship, we live by his terms. And his terms is that we should not be unequally yoked. And when it comes to marriage, what it means is it's those who are in a relationship with God who can come together in marriage because darkness and light do not cohabit. And so the real issue, we may talk about pressure that's there, and people end up just finding a man or a woman just because they are of the opposite sex and they would like to, they are desperate and they want people to see them with somebody. But the reality is that if we are to be objective to the faith, it is a command that we need to be married to someone who is of like faith, because marriage is presented in the Bible as a mystery that explains the relationship that is between Christ and the church. And therefore, because of that, it then cannot be someone who is outside of the faith being yoked together with someone of the faith, because that would not then resemble the mystery, as it were, on how then they would live out their life together. And if God blesses them with children, they have to raise them in the training and admonition of the Lord. If they are unequally yoked, there are fights that are bound to happen. In fact, they will raise children who are confused because and so it's a matter of obedience. But the problem is people they bow down to pressure, they bow down to their own personal pressure, which comes from their lustful desires. Because even the definition for love itself, you would find that when we are desperate, we are looking for something to fulfill us instead of something to fulfill the other person. For God so loved the world that he gave, so love gives. So if it is about giving, we will not be desperate to look for anybody to fulfill, how I will look to those people who are looking at me or how I feel, but how God feels and what he feels is what is important. But if there is room for us to love somebody that we would like to spend our life with them before we actually get to be equally yoked, to be unequally yoked, we need then to walk with them, give them the faith, because they are also a candidate for being given the faith as we go making disciples. And when that has happened, then only then can we come together. But also the other problem is that people complain and say, in the church we don't find men, we don't find women, they seem to be good guys out there. But that is what it is. I mean, the devil will lie low until the time comes when he strikes. And that's what has happened in many cases. People come for counseling and you ask them, where did you meet? And the believer was yoked with an unbeliever and now they have problems. And it seems it was rosy at first, but it will then lead to major problems after. And God doesn't want us to be in that. That is why he sets the parameters first. So we just need to be obedient.
So there's a phone call to balance some of the views that were coming in, and let's talk about level of faith as well. In the instance of someone say I'm not bom. How much can you change a 30-year-old who's been doing the same things all the time? How much should you bet on yourself on changing that person and saying, for me it sounds like you're dangling around with something that's very dangerous indeed when it comes to trying and fixing and things like that. And I like the person who phoned and saying these are the people that we find in the counseling room, and you see that it's the yoking as well. You see all sorts of things. Maybe let me come to you, you mind with this one.
Oh, thank you. I like what this last caller said, not necessarily because he is grounding it all on the word. That's pretty beautiful. But I also like that he kind of just balanced it out for us and gave all those views. And when we think about it, you can't really just decide that I will pick anyone in the church as well. I know he said that, give them the words, and after that you can be together. But I think the level, like you're asking, is so important. I cannot then decide to yoke myself to a baby Christian, someone who's just been saved, because there's difference in how we will behave, how we will look at life. There's a level for that person to attain maturity. And Paul speaks about there being a need for that person who's just gotten saved to be discipled, to be walked with, so that they're able to attain maturity. So if I just decide I've been in the faith and I've been walking with the Lord for a while, and this guy just got saved yesterday and he asks me out, and I say, okay, cool, we go together. Then in 3 months we get married, we're together. There's so many things we're going to struggle with in the long run because we are not yet at a level of maturity. And it's not about does he know the word a lot, but it's just really maturing in his walk with the Lord. Because like this guy said, our walk with the Lord is relationship. It's not religion. It's not, am I ticking the box for certain things, I'm a good person. That's not how we rate it. We rate it in terms of relationship with the Father. How are you spending time with him? Are you allowing him to mold your character, to change you so that you become useful in his hands and you become like Christ? Because that's what we're trying to do. The Bible is a manual for how we live this life of faith. And the more we spend time with the author who wrote the Bible, then we grow in maturity and we're able to go together. But I can't just date someone who got saved yesterday because I don't know if they're actually committed to this in the long run.
Yeah.
Only God knows.
Yeah, and also when you talk about levels and it's a slippery slope. I'll bring you in, Pastor Presley. When someone hasn't grasped the idea, maybe from a boy-child point of view, of leading the home spiritually, of wanting to be the one who is able to call a fast in the household and things like that. Those are maturity things that come with. I know you're involved in discipleship, and you probably know the stages of growth that someone can actually go through.
Yes.
Maybe tell us a bit about that, level of faith being an issue, because everyone's a Christian, but I'm Christ, but you can see the behavior is it's Christian.
Yes.
From the waist up. Yeah.
Yeah, that is very tricky, E.T. I think we now need to be intentional. If someone has decided to say, I'm gonna date this person for marriage, that's courtship, right?
Yeah.
And as you walk together, you experience life together. I would say, even if you are a new believer, but the Bible says in Corinthians, 2 Corinthians 5:17, that the old has passed away and the new has come. So I think the new has come already, although you are still a baby. But I think it is also part of marriage that you grow together, or part of you being together that you can grow together. I can tell you that today there are many pastors or many people in this world that are, in quotes, mature, that are having scandals, having divorces. We don't have to mention names of churches, but they are there. And you could go and say, oh, because he has done this in church, or he has started this church, he's mature. And it's a slippery ground as well to judge upon, because only God knows. And you as a believer, you need to go to God and inquire from God. And if God says, yes, he's the one, whilst he's a believer, then that's it. But if we are to judge upon maturity, like how long have you been a Christian, or how long have you grasped these principles, I don't think even Paul could have been an apostle, because he was new.
Yeah.
So I think we now need the humbleness and the humility to say, God, we have the basics together, that we believe that you have resurrected our Lord Jesus Christ. And because of those basics, I think it can promote a common ground.
How then, the ladies are listening, and they're usually under pressure, and they're happy for me to ask this. What should you look out for, you mind? Some of the signs of that you are in an unequally yoked dating situation. Because you might be dating and you might not know that I'm in an unequally yoked situation. And because how love is, man. It can just blind you to some of these signs that, like he's saying, that maybe the guy who sings in the choir might not be the mature guy. But we are dating, and what are some of the telltale signs of this unequally yoked person that you're with?
Wow. Okay, so I think to start off with, I would say that the way you would know, I do agree with Pastor Presley that there are some things that the Lord himself has to tell you. You can't just decide that I'm dating this guy on the Joe. To get into a relationship as serious as courtship, you need to have prayed about it and heard the Lord. So that's where we begin. So already as it is, if you're just dating some guy and you just decided by yourself that I'm going to be in this relationship, the first thing I will tell you, my sister, right now is go back into your prayer closet and pray. Ask the Father, is this something you want me to do? That's the first thing that says, there's something wrong with this picture, because in Genesis 2:18, it is the Father who initiates this marriage thing that's going on, especially when you're now getting into courtship and you want to be together for life. You have to have heard the Lord speak over your life to say, hey, now it's time for you to settle down. It is not good for you to be alone. And then the guy seeks you out. I do know that we're talking about, hey, girls be hunting out there, but just the equation itself, you are the one that's being sought out, because we see in Genesis, the guy is the one that God puts to sleep, and he works on this guy, and then he brings the wife to him, and then Adam says, bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. It's not Eve going around saying, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, where are you? I'm the rib out here. It's the other way around. So God presents you to the guy, and the guy pursues. That's a strong conviction for me. I'm not the one that's going to pursue the guy. So if you're pursuing the guy, I absolutely believe that there's something wrong with that picture as well. So you need to really pray and find counsel. The Bible says in the multitude of counsel there is safety. So even if you are not accountable to someone else, that's something like a guy who will come to you and say, I want to marry you, but they're not walking in accountability. They don't have anyone that they account to and say, hey, this is where I'm going with my life. These are the decisions I'm making. Would you help me pray? Let's pray together. The person has oversight over you. Literally, you are just walking and coming to them for oversight, and you are both accountable to God. No person then tells you to do something because they're not Lord over you. Only Jesus is. But the Bible says that when we are in the multitude of counsel, we are kept safe. So those are some of the things I'll just talk about for now, but the list can be endless. Those are some of the things we need to look out for and start there.
So let's talk a bit up. Let me come to you, Pastor Presley. Purpose can be hindered by the yoking, in terms of level of faith. Your mind speaks about how she's going out there for God. She's part of a missionary movement. She's got the podcast going. She's got spoken word going, and things that she does to serve the Lord. You are pursuing your things as well.
Yes.
Level of faith now. How does this level of faith and yoking then come into the picture? Because I'm also a Christian, you're also a Christian, we're together, but I don't really care much about serving in the house. I warm the pews. I really don't want to be doing this, that, and that, and that, and that. How much should that level of faith be something to consider?
Okay, I'll just give a simple illustration. If you take, because the two are becoming one, so we are having two sides of a tin coming together to form a one tin, or to form a one bucket. So if one side of the bucket, the base is the same, but then the height is like maybe 30 centimeters, that's the girl, and maybe the guy is like 1 meter, the height. So everything that we are going to pour in that bucket, which is long 30 centimeters and long 100 centimeters, like 1 meter, the water that can be there would be what?
30
centimeters. Yeah. So now you can consider with that to say, am I okay if whatever that God would use us is up to 30 centimeters? Because it doesn't matter whether you are 100 centimeters and it will end where the lowest is. So I think that brings in the importance of considering that, because how effective you two are going to be, it depends with how you two are capable to hold things together. Because to be honest, each and every one of us has a gap.
Yeah,
and we go into a relationship to fill those gaps. But now, as we are hearing, I think we are not going into these relationships to fill the gaps, because people are going into relationships for themselves. Tambise, as one of the viewers said, it's about me, not about the other part. It's not about helping the other part accomplish anything, but about me.
I guess when you're all selfless, the 1 meter munoshiga above. But let's hear from the phone lines. If there's someone through 0772162651. Good evening. You're through to Star FM.
Oh, great. Just wanted to make this contribution that first of all, this is a very great topic, and just want to say it can really be emotional. Because when you get unequally yoked, it'll be difficult for you to even, to serve. You have two people on different platforms. So I just want to warn those that are not yet in marriage that, it's very important. I heard someone in the panel say that sometimes it's not important whether or not someone's a baby Christian or a mature Christian. It is important. Why? Because you know what? That's where the incompatibility comes from. Because you are wanting to serve, probably you've got one car, you want to go to, a ministry meeting, and then the other person wants to, attend a soccer match. It's going to really, really be difficult. This is a real life situation. And so I just think that the young people really need to be careful. And the way it starts most usually is the men usually, they are not really honest. sometimes they just put up this face, and then before you know it, you are in, and most probably the societal pressures. You want to get married, but you really, really need to look into these issues. These are very, very important issues because they can determine whether or not that marriage is going to be successful. So, yeah, this is a very, very crucial thing to really consider. So to all those that are unmarried, I would encourage them to take this really, really seriously. And so, yeah, a good topic it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that contribution. Maybe let's get another phone call. 0772 162 0714 414 You can come through on the telephone lines and also have your say on this one. Good evening, through to Star FM. Ronan. You can go ahead, Mtero.
Right. Contribution yangu iri kuti chekutanga, the usual struggle of the opposite. Musikana anobva kumba kwavo zvinomutera. Mukomana anobva kumba kwavo anobva kumba kwavo zvinomutera. At times musikana anofanira kunge asingafaniri kuroorwa, mukomana achifanira kuroora. Then zvinhu zviviri zvinokwikwidzana izvi. Chatora mukombe kupera kwezuva ndicho chichabudirira. Kana iri ishu yekuti musikana pasako neroora ndo zvaakuitika. Tiri kuenda kune rimwe rutivi kuchivanhu. Toenda kurutivi kwechipiri, nharaunda inogara musikana anogona kunzi wa 21 years wanonoka kuroorwa. So nekuda kwaizvozvo akutoroorerwa izvozvo. Toenda kumukomana, mukomana anogona kuti neshamwari dzake musikana wako akanaka stereki, haachatsvaga mavalues akufanira shoko roti musikana wako akanaka, akutoroora achitora the wrong person. Toda kutata mativi ari maviri ese. Musikana aneta nenyika anotendeuka kuchechi, unotoita zvinhu zvakanaka stereki kuchechi ikoko. Mukomana ari kuchechi ari innocent zvake, obva angotarisa munhu ari kuita sekuti mutendi chaiye, kutomutorera izvozvo atonasiriye. So the same applies nekumukomana. Asi pashoko guru riripo, tinofanira takatatsvaga mavalues. Isusu vana vedu vavasikana vari kutengesa mavalues avo maybe nekutya. So kana zvasvika ipapo, marriage iri kuitwa apa haisisi marriage yakataurwa, haisati union yaMwari. Yaya zvinhu zviri kuonekwa nevanhu zvisingashandi. Ngatigumira ipapo.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you. So we're about to wrap up the show. How time flies. So I'm going to come to you, you mind first, and just give us your final thoughts on this one.
I think when we look at the passage we're taking this topic from, it says, do not be unequally yoked, and it's a command like my brother who called said. And it's funny that this is the only command that we have decided that we can do whatever we want with, especially with this manual, because it's a manual. It's the only place we feel we can put our feelings in. We can decide to do whatever we want and forget what the manufacturer said. If you have a car or a product that you buy from the shop and you get a manual and they tell you this is how you use it, with everything else in our lives, if you get an iPhone, you want to use it the way you were told to use it on the manual. There's no way you put a C-type charger on the iPhone. But this is the place where we decide we want to do anything and everything we want with, but we are not the manufacturer. We want to throw away the manufacturer. So I would just want to pose a question that, hey, don't you think it's dangerous for us to want to dabble in something this serious, especially when it's the only thing we get into unqualified? Yeah. And there's a manual for it.
Yeah. I'll come to you, Pastor Presley, as well. Just a quick, the emotion that the lady was speaking with feels like she's in a situation like that. I could just sense it that situation. Anyway, shout out to you, and we'll be praying that things run along smoothly.
Yes.
Maybe give us some of the thoughts and something that the guys can take home with.
Yeah, I would say, God has divorce. And what he joins together, no one should separate. And the only way out of a marriage is death. So when you are approaching marriage, you have to have the view that it's a lifetime commitment and take it seriously, not to fulfill the desires to say, munaribo, that's not enough. Or ndaita pressure my friends, that's not enough, because you are committing your life to one person.
Wow. So today we don't have a listener's choice song. Rather, we've got Your Mind to give us a poem. She's a spoken word artist. If she was thinking she was just going to go home without us demanding some poetry, then she's wrong. Quiz question of the day. This is the answer. Which religion is known as the 330 million gods religion? I.e., it has 330 million gods. The answer is Hinduism. Yes, this may sound a bit weird, but in Hinduism, the number of God is not one or two or a dozen, but in millions. Hinduism, there are about 330 million gods, maybe even more. Thus, God doesn't have a family, but there is a nation of gods where there are toddler gods, baby gods, kids as gods, teenager gods, and adult gods. This might sound a little bit sarcastic, but it's actually true. And if you've got your own God that you've discovered, you put it on the wall and you add, and it becomes 330 plus 1. So that's Hinduism for you there. That is Faith on Trial for today. Are we going to get something? You mind?
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's go for it as we close the show.
So this poem is called Leave, Cleave, Weave, and I hope you enjoy it. I was him and he was me, each soul's simple existence being the sole purpose of breathing in each other's wants and out each other's needs. I never knew where he ended and I begun, bone of his bone and flesh of his flesh, so intertwined were we that we were twisted. Discovery bounced off each of us. He started sentences and I finished them. Reached for the same thing. My mind was on our hands, touching and flirting, courting bliss in every moment. Our thoughts so synchronized. A transfixed gaze or gentle glance would communicate so well across a room of hundreds. So seeing me meant seeing him, and so the story went that in absentia, one represented both, and questions were not asked. There was no need. He was me and I was him. Currents of energy resonated and resounded off each of us. With eyes closed, I could tell he had walked into a room. So distinct was he that instinct picked him up like breathing. When troubled or extremely excited, he was my default. His mind, my haven, my heart, his home, his lap, my comfort. We were both so in love, and it was fascinating to us because words like "you are my world" became redundant. I was him and he was me, unbelievable but yet amazingly clarifying that you could have it all. Explaining why I married him, I do meant honoring, cherishing, and this applied to us both, no double standards. Being faithful to each other was not a question, and doubt didn't figure in our cards, which wasn't only emblematic but iconic. To some, this perfect picture meant meeting the man of your dreams followed by his beautiful wife. Ironic. We never tried figuring this out because enhlizweni zethu siyawazi. We were meant to be. He was me and I was him. His words when he said them were at the right time, explaining why I married him. He was me and I was him. No chasms existed between us. And he was me and I was him, unbelievably explaining why I married him. And then I woke up.
So you're dreaming? No.
Oh, this fun.
This while you're dreaming. Well done. That's Faith on Trial for today.
This is Faith on Trial on Star FM, exploring matters of faith and issues within the church.